Okay, it is ninth month, whatever that is, ninth day of 2023. Let's see, ninth month, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. It's September 9th of 2023. Uh, let's see. Here's my website, or I guess here's my YouTube site, um, which I'm guessing you already know about. Maybe not. Maybe you found it from some other link and saying just, I don't know, I have no idea. Um, the storm that we had yesterday, about, let's see, was it 24 hours ago? Yeah, about 24 hours ago. All of a sudden, I wasn't monitoring maybe I just took a nap or something, I'm not sure, but all of a sudden I heard wind, strong wind. I thought, wow. And then I heard thunder, a loud thunder, and I went out uh, onto our patio with my Samsung Galaxy Note 9 to get video of this storm. There was lightning, and it was um, strong wind, I was telling myself, I said, this is a 60-mile-an-hour wind. And then there was like a gust or something, and I thought maybe this might be a 70. And anyway, my fantastic cell phone, which I'm being sarcastic, um, I mean, it is just a great device. I mean, construction, everything, and all the stuff that it will do. But for a simple man like me, no. It sucks. It's always wanting to do. They should have some type of a mode set up or whatever, like idiot mode, uh, stupid mode, and just that's what they should have, and they should turn off. On stupid mode, it should turn off, where you could have it set where you could make a phone call, you could answer a phone call, you could even click and get the weather report or whatever, but this thing does everything and it wants to do it. I went out on the porch to get outside for the storm, and boom, it just switched. It stopped my video that I was making and wanted to do something else. It decided, I guess, oh, well, you want to hold this upside down behind your head or something. Um, I'll explain that in a second. Anyway, this phone just is too smart for me. I had about two or three Motorola, uh, and one of them, two of them, I think, had the stylus built in. Um, but anyway, I had no problem with those. I took pictures of the moon. I took pictures of some of the planets. I did all kinds of things, but no problems. And this one that offers all these fantastic abilities, it fucking sucks. So my daughter gave this to me, Hillary, and I'm not going to throw it away. I'm not even, I think I'm just going to retire it or something. I have it sitting here, and I think I'm probably going to end up getting a Motorola, maybe stylus, but I don't actually have to have stylus. I mean, and I don't even need the Motorola latest one. Because all I'm doing is simple stuff. That's all I want to do is simple stuff. I don't want to have to learn anything. I'm 82. I don't want to learn anything anymore. just enough to do what needs to be done. So anyway, yeah, you're not going to see any of the video I made. Well, because but let's see what's going on. Let's see. I told you, and about 87 people have viewed this. A neighbor told me about U.S. Post Office has a thing where you sign up for it, and then you you don't have to go to your mailbox. You can see what's in your mailbox. I think you can see what's actually on their way to your mailbox. Then what's in your mailbox. Now I think this neighbor or whatever, he said, now you don't see the junk mail, the flyers or whatever, but the rest of the stuff. So anyway, I hadn't heard of it. I've used the U.S. Post Office site. My throat's going out again. Hang on a second. I'm back. I just changed the frequency on the radio. That was a digital ham radio operator or whatever. My amateur radio license expired a while back, and I forget how long I've been even before I was an amateur radio operator. When Sputnik 1 went up, the first satellite, I tracked it. On my shortwave radio, I did a space communications column in a publication that I put out, and listed what frequencies were available and what the apogee and perigee and all that type of stuff. And I tracked, all this, and I did a lot, and that kind of stuff. Had fun. And eventually, it took me a while. In order to get an amateur radio license back then, you had to be able to send and receive. Well, I don't think it was send. I think you had to be able to receive Morse code and copy it down correctly. And I mean, little kids have done that, and you still see like some 9-year-old, Well, you don't have to. They did. That's right. They did away with the Morse code requirement. But and an amateur radio operator, well, you might pay. Well, at first the FCC. You had to go to the FCC office, Federal Communications Commission office. Take the test there. So they had of course they had secretaries and stuff too. But these guys have degrees in electrical engineering or something, and they're administering an amateur radio operator's license. So, eventually, the amateur radio organization, American Radio Relay League or whatever, stepped in and said, we can do the testing. And so they set up a thing that was approved by the FCC. So then you could, go to a local ham club or something like that, and amateur radio operators who were certified as people who could do that, and then they gave you the test there, and then things progressed and got better. And now for all these years, because amateur radio operators provide vital public service for free to people in disasters, you name it. I mean, amateur radio operators have been there forever doing it. When the space shuttle blew up over Texas as it was coming in to land in Florida, debris was everywhere, and it was important for NASA to collect every bit of everything, and they needed also to know the exact location. You couldn't say, well, at the end of Bill Bob's driveway there was a piece, and then in front of Rogers barbecue place it was, and then at the intersection of, they needed precise, exact longitude and latitude, and amateur radio operators were able to do that. Plus, of course, other people were helping too, out there. All kinds of stuff going on, and weather, sky warner, whether amateur radio operators have forever, been on the radio. I can remember, well, it was before cell phones. Amateur radio operators, had their walkie-talkies, and they were reporting on weather and all kinds of stuff. And in the beginning of, well, I was a volunteer for the Ground Observer Corps, by the way. We watched for USSR bombers over, our post was in Kansas City, Missouri. So we're watching, for if we saw bombers from the USSR over Kansas City, I don't think we really needed, we did though. I mean, we didn't see them, but we called in all aircraft. And we took priority, we had to use a telephone, and we took priority over everybody else. I'm sure the president, I guess, maybe the governor would have priority over us. I'm not sure the governor would, but, we called the operator and said, aircraft flash, and then we gave our, the code for our, what we were, and they connected us immediately. If they had to disconnect somebody, well, they got disconnected, and we got connected with, Strategic Air Command, or I forget what they called it back then. We went straight through, and we had to go straight through. And one time, I remember I was in Kansas City, Missouri. One time I called in, and I wasn't connected to the U.S. I was connected. They had to connect me with Quebec, Canada, Air Defense Command or whatever, because they had to put me in connection. So amateur radio operators did all this kind of stuff. Weather. I could go into that, and all kinds of other things. Amateur radio operators. Mars, military amateur radio service, I think, but a ham, could sign up for that, and you got to use some special frequencies that were outside of your normal band, and those were used by the military, and you were authorized to, and what happened during the Korean War and what happened during Vietnam War and all this kind of stuff. Amateur radio operators, transmitted messages for men who were in the service outside the United States or inside the United States, and from families and all that kind of, communications going, all types of stuff. And, there's so many things that ham radio operators have done and have been pioneers in bringing stuff that we have nowadays that we take for granted. They were doing it. And you've never had to pay for your license. Now, if an amateur radio club, at their clubhouse, they could charge you a small amount of money, and 3 amateur radio operators who were certified would be the ones who would, give you the test and make sure you didn't cheat and score the test and then notify the FCC. But you might pay them a small fee for that. But the Federal Communications Commission and the U.S. government never required us to pay any money. But because of the political situation, and because of the Republicans trying to positively, and a lot of Democrats probably too, in that thing too, of wanting to make money off of the frequencies. There's a limited amount of spectrum, internet, spectrum. I was picked by the FCC back a long time ago, before an International Telecommunications union meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, where everybody came. They sent delegates. And my job and the other people who were picked like me here in the United States, we monitored the radio spectrum, looking for stations around the world that were not in their assigned area, that had moved out of their area, and the International Telecommunications, decides what frequency bands and how much power and all types of stuff. So I actually did the monitoring for that and reported it. And I don't know where the FCC stations were, but when I picked up a counting station that intelligence agencies and things like that used, and when I picked one of those up, the frequency or whatever, I called Grand Island, Nebraska, and identified myself. And they said, "Okay, Jim." And I said, "Got this Spanish counting station on, I forget, let's say 7330 kilohertz or something." And the guy said, "Just a second." And I could hear it in his, he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Picking it up." So then he told me a little bit. I mean, he's not going to tell me if it's a CIA station. I'm not even sure if he'd tell me if it was a Castro. I'm not sure. I can't remember what he told me. But that's the kind of stuff that we did for years. Well, then, because of the political situation and because of politicians, because of cell phones, because of all kinds of stuff, that spectrum that is limited. Now you can make the signals, more narrow. You can do all kinds of things, but it became valuable. And cell phone companies, they wanted frequency, so they could do. I just had a sort of a hot dog. It's really good. So anyway, everybody wants and so then like I said, the amateur radio operators, they were around. They were the inventors of, Marconi and all that kind of. He wasn't an amateur radio operator, but he would have been. So, especially the Republican Party, they wanted to make money off these frequencies, and by taking the frequencies away from people if they could, and then dividing it up and then selling it to you name a telecommunications company or something, the frequency. So then they decided, well, amateur radio operators, they're using, X amount of frequencies, but they're using them for, they're using it to communicate with each other. They're using it to assist the police department or fire department or doing all kinds of things. And the military, thousands, if not millions of, servicemen who served in Vietnam or Korea or places like that, were able to send messages. This is before cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and get messages from their, homes. Guys could find out, hey, you're a father now, your wife just gave, and they could talk, actually talk with voice, or messages were sent by teletype, by ham radio operator, and just all this stuff. But with everything going on, with everything being, how can we make money off of, these people? So they decided, like, we didn't have to pay for our amateur radio licenses. And so the Republicans, oh no, these ham radio operators, whoever they are, well, they should have to pay for a license. So they just, a year or two ago or something, instigated a fee for amateur radio operators. And I don't think that's fair, but, you know, I pay for a lot of shit, you know. So the FCC then started, you know, charging for it. Well, so I went ahead and my license was coming up to expire. And they're good for 7 years. So I went to a site where in the past I would go to the site before they, you know, or I'd take the test, you know, or didn't have to take the test. No, once you're licensed, you're licensed. Unless you want to upgrade to a different, you know, class of license. So I went and logged into an amateur radio site. There was a bunch of them. And filled out the information, and I paid the fee. And I'm sure in the way it worked in the past, 7 years ago or whatever that was, is that the club or the site that I logged into just automatically informed the Federal Communications Commission that I had renewed my license, and I got my FCC license in the mail. Okay, so I logged in, paid my money on my credit card or bank card or whatever it was, and then I was directed that I had to go to the FCC website, and then I thought at that time, oh fuck, because it's going to be massive, because they license radio TV stations, they license, you know, and all that. They have all that stuff. A lot of people need licenses you don't realize, you know, and stuff. And I thought, this is not going to work out good. So I went there, and I hadn't been there probably for 7 years or longer. And now I remember I'd already paid, just, you know, and I log in and, you know, what's your registration number? And then there was other things. And I started filling it out. And it didn't like my password, it didn't like my username, it didn't like anything, and and if you follow me, by the way, I think you know, I don't want to learn how to use Pascal, or I don't want to learn how to, I just want the computer to work for me. I just want to be able to do this, do that, and I don't want to have to learn a whole bunch of shit. I mean, when I started in 1982, with the stuff was happening, I had a computer course. I was one of the first people to have personal computers. And I've had a bunch of them over the years, you name them. Well, a bunch. And I got a Radio Shack Model 1 with 4K of memory, and I eventually upgraded it to 48K of memory, and I thought, who can need more than 48K of memory? And then at some point, there was modems listed, and they said, you know, I had a 300 baud modem, and then 1200 came out, and I had to write software, my own software. I had to get the BASIC book and learn BASIC, and then I had to write a BBS program so that people could call in with their computers. But anyway, so I'm going to renew my ham radio license. I paid the money, and I go, and then the FCC site doesn't know me. Well, they know I'm there, but nothing works. And I spent about 8 hours. I couldn't believe it. Not all at once. I sat down for 2 or 3 hours and fuck it. And then I left and figured, well, okay, I'll come back and then I'll remember the password, or I'll read, I'll say, give me a new one or whatever it was. Nothing worked. And then I just said, and I'd already paid my money for the license, but the FCC didn't know. But I couldn't log in anyway. And then so finally my license expired, and I just said, fine. I got it's a ham radio sitting back there. I can't transmit now. That would be against the law. But I can receive. And then if you watch one of my earlier videos where I said, that's it, I can't afford, and I was talking because of this happening. I thought, I can't afford computers. I can't afford cell phone. I can't afford all this stuff. If it's going to be a hobby or whatever, I can't afford more than one. So it looks like it's going to be, me doing YouTube or something, or, that's going to be it. So I decided, okay, fuck ham radio, and I just let my license expire. But it's nagging at me because I was, one of the things I've been looking forward to is, when an amateur radio operator dies, like in QST magazine, the publication of the American Radio Relay League or whatever, there's your call sign will be listed, and your location, N0UWY, Jim Howard, Fort Worth, Texas, silent key, the key, silent key, meaning you're dead. I've been looking forward to being listed as a silent key. But anyway, like with the storm and everything, and other stuff, I just, enjoyed. I didn't use it very much, amateur radio, but I enjoyed having the power or whatever. In the beginning with amateur radio, I'd be out in my car, and there'd be a car accident. Police weren't there, 3 a.m. in the morning or something. And so I would pull up, and then I would get on the ham radio and make a phone patch. You could, back then, that's before cell phones or anything like that. And then it was before 911, but, they had dispatchers. And they'd answer, and I'd have to say, I'm an amateur radio operator, and I'm on the, on the ham radio, and there's a car accident at, 435 and Gregory Boulevard or something or other. There don't appear to be any injuries or whatever. And they'd say, okay, thank you, and they would dispatch a police car. And then other things like it, fire even, There was a house on fire. Now, of course, everybody has a cell phone and everybody calls. Now, people, I don't think are, people are making videos of it. Somebody's in a car, hanging half out of the car, and people are taking pictures of it. I'm sure, too, because I've heard that, 911 dispatchers, they get tons of calls, a lot of calls. But I want to be back. Well, I don't want to be back in the old days. I want to be back in the new days. But so I'm going to try here. Well, I was going to try tonight, but it's getting late. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to go back to the FCC site and see if I can figure out what it takes. Surely I'm not the only, especially a ham radio operator, who didn't have to log into the FCC site. Except once, I don't think you even had to do that. I guess you would have to do that. You'd have to have your own password and stuff. By the way, an interesting thing that I always kind of liked was, well, all across the United States. We're going back to the old days, you know. I mean, way before my time, even, you know. When radios first were put into, you know, police cars and stuff like that. But states, cities, counties, sheriff's departments, all that kind of stuff, they all had, at some point, laws saying that it is against the law to listen to, you know, these police calls. It's against the law to have a device in your vehicle where you can pick up police calls or whatever. And what I liked was that it took a little bit, and it was actually a long fight. But ham radio, you know, amateur radio operators said, you know, we're licensed by the Federal Communications Commission that we can receive any frequencies that are not encoded. Anything that's long, now if it's encoded by a company or a police department or something like that, then we're not authorized to break their code. But if they're just transmitting, which is the way things were forever, you know, just transmitting, you know, then we were licensed by the Federal Communications Commission, which has, you know, authority over, so far as this goes, you know, frequencies and radios and that kind of stuff. Has authority. The FCC has regulations regarding, you know, police departments and transmissions and all that, everything. Aircraft, you know, space shuttles. Most of the astronauts and cosmonauts or whatever on this International Space Station, I think just about all of them, right, are amateur radio operators. And they, you know, going around the Earth that's transmitting. You can pick it up, and I've never transmitted to it, but you can transmit, you know, if I wanted to go out and do it, I could, but I'm so clumsy if I was, you know, trying to do GPS, and of course we can do GPS on our cell phones now, and you can do them on the ham radios too, and all that. But anyway, what I kind of liked was that, anyway, most of the cities and states, I'm sure that most of all the states did, because they went to the Federal Communications Commission, and the Federal Communications ruled against police officers who arrested, you know, some amateur radio operator and took his radio away from him and all that kind of. It took time, and the American Radio Relay League, the organization of the, you know, amateur radio hams, it took time and took a court case or two going to the Supreme Court that. And not only that, which is pretty prestigious or whatever, an amateur radio operator can do whatever is necessary to get emergency communications through. And they're authorized to use whatever means that they can. You know, you can't play police officer or, you know, fireman or something like that. But if you need to get communications through, you can use whatever frequencies are necessary in order to do that. And that's pretty neat. And all that kind of stuff. So I want to get my license back, although you could, here, I've been, I think 16 years, I think I've been living this time in Fort Worth. And, well, there was a few times, every week I was checking into a net, you know, the amateur radio, one of the operators have a club or whatever, they'll set up a net every Friday night at 9 o'clock, and you can check in, and they'll make, that way you know your radio's working, and they can tell you, you know, what's going on, and events that are coming up. Amateur radio operators are at parades and all that kind of stuff, provide communications to help the police and other people, because they don't have enough people for every intersection to see if somebody that's, you know, doing the, what is it, 150 ride, where you go 150 miles or something on your bicycles, you know. So, and that's pretty neat that, you know, So I'm going to try to get my license back. I already own two, handy talkies, and I think I've given a couple away. But so I'm going to try that again. If you see me here, if I make another video here, and I don't know, a day or two, and you see my face red, and you see blood vessels standing out on my head, and if I'm in a foul mood, you'll know that I couldn't. There's got to be a way for me to log back into this FCC site. There's got to be a thing. Okay, I'm an idiot and I don't remember my password or my such and such a number or my such and such a number or my such and such a number, that I need all of them and to get in, There's got to be something where, so maybe I'll be an amateur radio operator license, although I can't afford. I've got, a fairly nice, this one back here, fairly nice radio. I can track, the space shuttle and other, because they transmit beacons and all that. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. And I've never actually tried talking to the space shuttle, the hams on, or the astronauts on board or cosmonauts on board. They've got a whole bunch of equipment, ham radio equipment they've taken up there and hooked up. But anyway, here's the weather. And here is, okay, I don't know who this is. It's a YouTube video. It says not for broadcast. Oh, fuck. I think, I hope, I see down here they have their logo or whatever. I think they'd be okay with me, but I'm not going to, because it says not for broadcast. And I'm not going to, But here's CBS, Texas or whatever, so.
Let's get back to your first alert weather. We can hear some rumbles of thunder here in the studio here tonight. And Doug Dunbar, he's not here with us tonight, but he sent in some video of lightning from Keller. He tells us that the Keller High homecoming football game had to be evacuated due to the storm. A lot of games were going on as these storms came south from the Oklahoma border down into North Texas. Keep moving south here tonight. First alert meteorologist Scott Padgett joining us now. Are they holding together, that strong line holding together?
Yeah, well, it's a broken line, Jason, but some of the storms still are strong, and they are holding together, at least for right now. And you remember, a lot of the games were pushed back.
Okay, I'm going to stop that. I will put a link below to that. But by the way, I worked, as a second job, I worked contract security. I was working full-time hospital security, and then I worked at contract security at KCMO News, KCMO Radio, FM, TV, or whatever. I worked there. And, but all across the United States, like I spent years in Florida or whatever. And we need the weather people. We need the weather people. We need the weather forecast. We need all this kind of stuff. But in some cases, in many cases, these weather people, and thank God, we do need them. But they're also fucking idiot. I mean, it's like if you're in Florida and you're the weatherman, you're pretty much praying that a hurricane comes, because then they're going to give you extra time, and you'll get to go down by the ocean or whatever and stand there with the water, and being buffeted around, and tree limbs are falling close to you and all this kind of stuff. You should be fucking taking shelter and doing, looking for some other, they do that. Same with tornadoes and, in Missouri or Oklahoma or Arkansas or wherever, same, and they really pissed me, really pissed me off. Now, I've got a very good friend. He's been my friend for years. He may be my best friend. And he retired. He was a weatherman for the federal government. And I told him, well, he tells me a lot. I can ask him questions and he kind of watches the weather. He's not in this state now. Well, he never was in this state. Well, he's been here, but uh, I saw some of these. Well, even the weather local, even the fucking local news weather people. They'll have a car, with some lights on top of it, and they'll have equipment in it and cameras, and they'll have all this kind of stuff. And when the tornadoes are coming or whatever, they go rushing out into it, and they're driving through it. This is so and so, and we're going to switch to so and so. He's in whatever they name their vehicle. And but then there's others who are just out to have some fun. But they also, a whole bunch of them now, making videos for YouTube and other places, copywriting it and whatever, and they're going out and seeing flooding and tornadoes and all this kind of stuff. And, it's just, and they'll fucking run you off the road. They'll go they'll drive the wrong way. These people, tornado hunters or whatever. They just pull all kinds of. They're not authorized to do. They're not authorized to do that. They're not supposed to do that. And I've seen, working hospital security, I've seen, whether people show up at the hospital and, like there was one parking lot we had, an entrance, and an exit right there, and for the entrance, I think, and the exit. Maybe I think it might have just been the exit, but there was a spikes that came up there, and that was an exit. Now, if you're exiting the parking lot, the spikes go down and you drive in to pick, come. But there was a gigantic sign. It was as big as a security officer or a parking lot attendant. Stop. Tire damage. Severe tire damage. Do not enter. The news people come in, drive over the thing, blow out. I think they blew out all 4 of their tires, which was, maybe it was just 2 of their tires. Because I've seen some poor, old person like me come before and, drive into drive into the exit and then blow a tire. I felt sorry for them. But anyway, the director of security called me. I was in charge of the day shift at that time. Jim, fire, whatever his name was, I forget his name. Fire, and I went up to the director's office and said, what are you talking about? He just let the news media drive into the exit, and they blew all their tires out. Fire him for not doing his job. And I said, I'll go down and see what's going on. So I went down. And like I said, right there, bigger than the parking lot attendant who was at the gate, was a painting, a thing with stop, do not enter, severe tire damage or whatever. And I said, what happened? I didn't tell him that the boss, the director of security told me to fire him, And he said, I went over, and he said they just about ran over me. I held my hands up. I had to jump out of the way. And everything. They were there because they've been called by human resources, not human resources, public relations. Oh, I hated those people that at the hospital. I fucking hated them. I think I went in this before, so I won't go over it again, but I can tell you some fucking stories. Everything was, good relations with, and so anyway, I went up and told the director of security, Tony did his job, and you're not firing him. And he said, okay, Jim. So, so he didn't fire him. But the hospital paid for their tires. So, God. Okay, things are popping in, like when I worked at that KCMO News or whatever. But I think this is enough. How long have I been talking? 45 minutes, that's enough. But I'm not sure I will put a link to this. In Kansas, I'm going to jump real quick. In Kansas City, Missouri, one of the Channel 5, that was it. Everybody pretty much loved the weatherman there on that station. And I did too. I mean, not loved him, you know. I didn't give him a blowjob or anything, you know, but everybody liked him. So anyway, I'm out there working. And I'm out in the parking lot because that's where of course I could go inside. I did go inside. Almost ended up on camera one time. Let me tell you that. It was election time, and they told me inside, if there's any special delivery, you know, things or whatever, bring it right to us. And so anyway, special delivery or somebody came up or something with a thing, gave it to me. So as I was going in, I looked at the door. The light wasn't on. I should have been thinking about also what the time was. 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, whatever. But the light wasn't on. And so I went in, and then I go in, and the light wasn't on, you know. And so then I stepped in, and then there's, the weather person, the sports person, and they're all sitting there. And there was a lady right there. I forget. I don't know what she was, if she was weather or what she was, but she was right there. And so I just held it out to her, to take. And she just, like she was froze. And I thought, what's wrong? Getting it to her. And then I looked, and then I realized it's 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever it is. Well, then they said, how they do it when it, this is KCMO, news or whatever, coming up such and such, and then they switched. So the camera didn't have me. And I was like, oh, shit. Then I stepped back behind a barrier and stood there, and then they said, okay, we'll be back in a minute. And they went to a commercial or something. So then I stepped out and tried to give it to this black lady. And she was frozen. The only thing she was thinking about was when they called on her, So then the guy over there, he said, I'll take it. And I went over and handed it to him and got out of the thing. So after that, I remembered, always don't just depend on that light, but know what time it is, know what time it is. But there was a guy, he was running for Republican. Well, the Democratic governor, I think that was it. He showed up, and I think he was being driven by a highway patrol officer. That was it. He showed up, he got out real nice. I was just security guard out there in the parking lot, and he shook my hand, whatever, and I let him in the door, and stuff. And then another time, this guy showed up in a limo, and they were drinking. They had highballs or not wine, champagne or whatever. And he had an entourage of people, and this guy gets out, and I can tell right away, I didn't know he was a Republican at that point. I should have, because he was a fucking prick. And he got out, and let me in, I'm so-and-so. He was running for governor. And so I let him in or whatever. His people went in behind him, Oh, sir, let me get this way or whatever. And so then I made rounds. It was up to me to when I went in or whatever. I guess this is going to be an hour video. It was up to me what to do. So anyway, I went in, and there they had a stool. He was sitting on the stool. And they had like 50 monitors up. Must have been 50 monitors. And of course, back then, the video, I didn't realize how much difference there was. I mean, they had these were monitors. And the video I was seeing was like, wow, Can I get that at home, you know? Which well, I guess you could if you had enough money. Well, it'd still have to come over the airways at that time. I think that was before cable, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, this guy's on the thing, and he's a prick, and he looks fucking good, you know, the way they're doing everything, you know, the camera and that kind of. And of course, I knew he was a Republican, and I'm a lifelong Democrat. Was, always will be. And he was an asshole with his entourage of people who were drinking and driving, although I don't remember saying the driver, but he was, you know, one of them. And so then I made my rounds, came back later. He was there a long time. They were dealing with, you know. I think I came in 3 or 4 times, maybe only 3 times. I'm coming through and making my round. And then the last time it was okay. If this is okay with you, asshole. They didn't say asshole, but I'm not sure if that's what they were thinking. Since I'm a rational human being, I think they were probably thinking the same thing. And in which case I felt sorry for them having to even deal with this fucking guy. But then so I stood back, you know, out of the way, of course, and they showed his advertisement that was going to be on TV. And he looked good. He looked like he was an intellectual, like, you know, whatever. I just kind of thought, fuck. He lost big time. He lost. So that, in a way, made me think, you know, the American people, I'm not sure now, with what's happened over years and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure, but I thought then, wow, that shows the American people, they can see through, you know, they can see through the bullshit. But after Trump's election and a lot of other elections of Republicans or whatever, I don't think they can see through the bullshit. Anyway, this weatherman that we all, Johnny Yates, I think that was it. I think his name was Johnny Yates. Real nice guy. Anyway, I was out in the parking lot, and then I saw a crescent moon, just a perfect crescent moon, like you'd see on a Turkish flag or with a star or something, you know, right there. And it, you know, was whatever. And I saw that, and I thought, and I forget how old I was. I wasn't 82, but I was, you know, I was over 40. I don't know, but anyway, I thought, I've never seen that. And by the way, I subscribed to Astronomy Mag. Well, Astronomy, I'm not sure if it was their magazine or if it was a big club that became a big thing. When I had my computer bulletin board system, they contacted me and said, could we put our stuff on your system? And I said, sure. So they had it on there. So all the club members and things, you know, went there. And then eventually they moved on to their own service. And they might be I don't know, you know, same company. Because they have the same name as a big one. Astronomy Club of America. I forget what it is. I have a lot of regrets, things that I didn't do. They had, of course, a telescope and everything out in outside where there was no light, you know, because you can't see a lot with street lights and all that kind of stuff. Amazing difference, and you know, if you live in the country or someplace, you know the difference between being in the city, looking up trying to see the stars or meteors or whatever, and being in the country. Yeah. So anyway, they had a place out there. They invited me to go out there several times. You know, that they would even drive me out there, although I had a car, of course. But you know, they would take me out there in the middle of the night, and we could see such a night. I really wanted to do it, but I had other stuff going on. My Howard's Notebook. BBS or whatever, I don't know what was going on. And I really regret that I didn't do that. I've never looked through. Well, I bought a couple really cheap telescopes, and when's the one that comes through every, 75 years or something. And the year that I bought it, I got it from my kids. And it wasn't a real expensive one, but it was, you know, and it was crummy, you know. But right after that, a meteor, was it a comment? No, it was a comet, I think. Yeah. And, you know, here everybody's waiting for Halley's Comet to come through. And it wasn't very impressive. Wasn't impressive at all. And then this other one, I'd be driving to work during the daylight and all kinds of stuff, and I could look up and there it is. You know, there's this. You know, there's this comet. That was pretty neat. But anyway, so I'm working security there at this radio TV station, and I see this. You know, look like some kind of a flag with a crescent and a star or something. And then, so I went inside, you know, where and I said, you know, to the producer, director, and the other people were all there, you know, and they're, sometimes the TV guys, either behind the desk or whatever, they're not wearing their pants because they don't want to get them creased or something. I'll be sitting there in their shorts or something, you know. But anyway, you probably didn't need that information, did you? But anyway, I come in, and I said, "Are you getting any phone calls about a strange object up in?" I said, "It looks like a crescent moon with a star," and I said, "It's really unusual, you know, really unusual." "Nope, nothing at all." And I said, "Oh, okay." Oh, they said, ask ask Johnny Yates. You know, our weatherman, he's also big time into astronomy and all that kind of stuff. And I said, okay. So I went out, and then he pulled in, and I said, "Sir, have you seen this up here?" "Yeah." And I said, "I've never seen anything." Let's say I was 40. I don't know how old I was. I said, he said, "Oh, that's nothing. That happens all the time. It's called a conjunction of such and such." And I said, "Ah." I've never seen it before. I didn't tell him that I subscribed to Astronomy Magazine and that I went and watched this, you know. I didn't tell him that. I said, "I've never seen anything like that before." "Oh, yeah, that's nothing." So he went on inside. About an hour later, I'm standing out, and hey, I need to move this which way? Nope, this way. So I'm out there, and I've told her that's gone from my mind now. I mean, I'm looking, you know, for bad guys and people that need help and all kinds of stuff. That's out of my mind. And then the director and producer and 3 or 4 other people, the door burst open, you know, and they're out there. "Where is it? Where is it?" And I was like, "Where's what?" "The star, the planet, or whatever." I said, "Oh, well, it's right there." But I said, it's almost down now because it was moving down. And the director or somebody said, "Oh, get him on the radio, get him on the radio." And so then, just a few minutes later, I guess they were close by, they come roaring into the parking lot at a high rate. They were coming down the street because they were the news media at a high rate of speed. And then they pulled into the parking lot and they yelled, you know, "Where is it, where is it?" And I said, "Well, it's just below the horizon now." And this driver says, "I know a hill we can get to," and he takes off. And I thought, I don't think he's going to make it. Well, the next morning on the front page of the Kansas City Times, a newspaper, picture of it, front page, comments about it, blah, 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 blah. And all the TV stations, they got it. And they had, you know, video and that kind of stuff of it, except one TV station. They didn't have anything about it at all. Always listen to the night watchman. Always really just listen to somebody when somebody tells you something. You know. Of course, they referred me to the expert, but still, that's what I've run into a lot of times. I've had, you know, I worked at a hospital. I've been on the midnight shift, no, evening shift as supervisor for several years. And then I told the director of security, "I want to be on the day shift." And, well, there's no supervisor. I don't care. I never wanted to be a supervisor. You begged me to come over. I want to work the day shift. I've got kids, 4 kids. I want to be on the day shift. And he says, oh, you don't really want to? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, you really do? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, nobody's ever, he was in the military, by the way. Nobody ever wants to give up a supervisory position. I said, I do. Went over to the day shift, and then I saw this guy, black guy, with Roman collar, black suit, Roman collar, and I saw him. And then I asked the other security officer who'd been working the day shift, I said, who's this guy? I see the guy in the waiting room watching television. I said, which patient is he with? Oh, yeah, there's some, they gave me some, shit. Yeah, I'm making my rounds the next day, I see the guy again. I ask him again, are you sure, the security officer? Oh, yeah, he's a minister or whatever, and he's with him. Then I see him again the next day, so I go over, and I said, Reverend, can I ask you a question? Yeah. What church are you with? And then he gives me some bullshit, And I said, so you're just coming in here to watch television? No, I'm with, and I said, no, you're not. His name was Wright. At least that's what he said his name was, Reverend Wright. And I said, okay, Reverend. I said, you don't have any business here at the hospital. Do not come back. Stay off the property. And then he left. And then a day or two later, whatever, he was back, and then I gave him the trespass warning. I said, you don't have any business being, of course I wrote all this, turned it on my activity sheet and everything else. So, came back and I said, if you come back without having business here, you're going to be arrested for trespassing. I don't think you want that. Don't come back. And he left. And then I didn't see him for about a week. And I was sitting with the director of security. The director of security was getting ready to go home, and he sat down in the cafeteria, and I sat down, talked to him a little bit. And then I looked over, and in the line, there was the Reverend Wright with his tray going through the cafeteria line. And I said, Mr. Ross, I'll be back in just a second. And I went up, and he was there to pay, and he paid. And he was black, by the way, and the black young lady, at the counter, at the checkout, And so I said, whatever, she had a name tag, I think, and I said, let's say Mary. Mary, would you do me a favor and get him some plastic utensils and whatever, because he's not taking our plate and our silverware. He's just going out. And then I told him, he tried to stab me, by the way, which I didn't care, with a plastic fork, whatever. I didn't care about that. I just told him, I said, anyway, the young lady who was, she was looking at me like, are you crazy? She was looking at me like, he's a minister. He's got, I doubt she knew it was called a Roman collar or whatever they call it. So anyway, I kicked him out. He never came back after that. But then, I think that was around the same time. I'm making the rounds of the hospital on the day shift. And I get on the elevator. I had to check the elevators, he checked everything. And anyway, I got on the elevator, and this guy got on there with me, a black guy, by the way. It's going to look like I'm prejudiced or something, but no. He gets on, and he wanted to kill me. I could tell. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he wanted me dead, and he was going to see to it that I was dead, I thought. So I asked the security officers, because I hadn't been working on the day shift for years, I said, who's this guy? And, oh, well, he's transportation for surgery. He works in surgery, and when a patient needs to go from surgery to the ICU or to recovery room or to their room, and he goes up and he also brings them down for the surgery or whatever. And I said, okay, what's the deal with him? Oh, what do you mean, what's the deal with him? I said, have you looked at him? You know, he wants to fucking kill me. And I bet he's looking the same way at you and maybe everybody else. What's the deal? Have we put a ticket on his car? Have we towed his car? What? Nothing, nothing. I said, there's something wrong. And anyway, it turns out, we found out later, well, we found out a couple of things. One thing, everybody had to be checked through security that was hired. When somebody put an application in human resources, you know, security was given their information. And in the beginning, we had to drive it to the police department. And later on, we could send it, you know, by internet or something to the police department. And then they would run them and it would come back. And it was always, I don't think I saw anything that wasn't, you know, didn't have their dog controlled, you know, stuff like that. And so anyway, there was right across from the hospital, kind of set up on a hill, and like 1 block away, actually half a block, was our parking lot, one of our parking lots. And when I made my rounds, I could look there and I could see down to the Main Street, 31st and Main Street, you know, through Kansas City. I could look down, there was a lounge, and next to it was a lounge that was kind of notorious for having guys dressed up like girls, and people would come there, I think, at night, and it's something to do, I guess. Across the street, I forget what was on the corner. Next to that was an adult bookstore, and I forget what the rest of the stuff was. And anyway, in the adult bookstore, which I could easily see from, you know, it was like half a block away, the 2 clerks there were killed, robbed and killed. And then there were, this is before CNN, before network news, you know, going by satellite everywhere. So not all the news made it where it should make it. Day, I'm not going to feed you. It's only not even midnight yet. So anyway, on the news, local news, there was, on the local news, shops, businesses were closing. If you wanted to get, they were not closed. I mean, they locked their doors. If you wanted to get in and get a haircut, you had to knock on the door, and they'd look at you and they'd let you in. You went to the jewelry store, you'd have to knock on the door. And that wasn't all the way through, I don't think, you know, it was, but areas and whatever. And then this guy, of course, you know, the orderly that worked at the hospital, oh, it came out when it turned out that he was a serial, I guess you'd call him a serial killer. Anyway, he didn't, thank God he wasn't like one of the later people who killed every, you know, he killed everybody that was in a place when he robbed it. But he wasn't going to, like the way that some of these shooters go to a movie theater, although I think a bunch of the, you know, or someplace else. He was, but when it turned out that the hospital had hired this guy, which the hospital covered up, I never saw that in the paper. Maybe it was, I didn't see it. But he had a massive record, of course, you know. He shouldn't have been out, you know. Well, I didn't get to see the record. Even, you know, but he shouldn't have been out for anything, and I already, but why didn't security get to, when he went to human resources and when he got hired, or was thought of being, or they were thinking about, why didn't it come to us the way it should? And then we go to the police department, and then they would have come back, and they'd have probably called us, probably. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. You guys aren't thinking about hiring this guy, are you? It turns out that one of the hospital administrators, and there was like 3 of them, I have an idea probably who it was. I know it wasn't the hospital, the administrator, so there was 2, others. I have an idea which one it was. And I kind of liked the guy, the hospital administrator. And, but his wife, she belonged to, because he was a hospital administrator and, lived in Overland Park. And Overland Park is like, I don't know wherever you live, but, there's areas, I'm sure, in a city, if you live in a city, that like, influential people live there. They have the better schools, and they have this, and they have that. And that was, So she volunteered to help rehabilitate or, make sure that somebody who had been in prison, that he could get a job and whatever, that type of stuff. So she appealed to her husband to, help this poor guy, get a job, because there's so much prejudice against him and that kind of stuff, and it's so hard for him. So I don't know exactly what he did, the hospital administrator, but I'm not sure if he just made sure that this guy's thing didn't go to, human resources, or that he didn't go to security so they could be run, and then because maybe his application, maybe it looked good. Maybe he left off, that stuff, and that's what was supposed to. So I don't know exactly how it worked, but that's how that guy ended up working there. The way they got him was at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, real late, over in, I think, Independence, Missouri, right next to Kansas City, Missouri. I think it was Independence. There was a convenience store that had 2 people working in it, and it seemed like there was a customer in there, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time ago. Anyway, the armed robber who was driving a yellow or a pink Cadillac. This guy wanted to be caught. I mean, he wanted to be caught. He should have surrendered himself to me or something instead of wanting to kill me. He went in and he killed all 3 of the people, and then when he came out, he bumped into he was black, by the way. When he came out, okay, I gotta feed the cat. Don't touch the... Okay, I'm back. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm taking so long with this. So, the killer, who was terrifying Kansas City, Missouri, and shops had their doors locked and all kinds of stuff going on. He came out and he supposedly bumped into a black man. And anyway, the police, at some point discovered, that there had been a armed robbery and 3 people were dead there. And then somebody said, I saw a black man, but it wasn't this guy. It wasn't Vincent X. Lee. It was not the killer. It was this other guy. A black man, but he was home with his wife and his children. I'm going to exaggerate this. I think they just come back from church. I don't know that. I'm just throwing that in to make it better, He was home, and bang, bang, bang. The police are there. Probably SWAT teams and everything else. I don't know that either. and they drag him out of the house, and they take him to the police station, and then they're wanting to know, I don't know how they did their interrogation, you know, you know, where were you? Well, I was at, where were you at such and such a time? Well, I was at such and such getting gas for my car or something, and he told them the place, not that they didn't sell gas there, but he was there. Okay, man. And they said, they're, why did you kill these people? I mean, I don't know what they said, but they're doing the thing, and this guy might, it's been shit. No, I'm a deacon at the church. I don't know what he was saying either, but whatever. And then I guess they say, did you see anybody else there? Well, yeah, when I came when I came down, he didn't come out of there. As I was coming down there, this, I don't know what he said, brother or black, I don't know what he said, anyway, this black guy bumped into me. And did you know, I don't know what they said. Did you know him? Was he with you? Or, what? No. I said, I can tell you what kind of car he was driving. It was a yellow Cadillac. A yellow Cadillac. Yeah, he was driving a yellow Cadillac. And I can tell you where he had a paint job done on it. And there was a place that did paint jobs on cars for like $50 or something back then, And I guess it probably looked like a 50, And and so they, the police, I guess, let this guy go because I guess probably I don't know why. I don't know how long they kept him, but then that was my day off, and then I heard on the news, the police department is looking for a suspect in the killing of, two guys at an adult bookstore, and there's people here, and these people here, and these people here, and out in Independence, two clerks and a customer that was there or whatever, and they're looking for him, and reported to be, with a yellow Cadillac or something like that, whatever it was, and I was at home, and I told the wife, I've seen a car like that in our parking lot. I don't know who it belongs to. If I'd have known it was his vehicle, I'd have said right away. I'd have called right away, or I'd have got in my car and drove down to the hospital. And I don't know what I would have done. Anyway, I said tomorrow I'm going to check it. And of course, the wife, being supportive of me as she has always been, and thinking that I'm a intelligent and handsome person the way she does, she said, well, what would you have, you wouldn't know anything. And I said, I'd be looking in the vehicle to see what I could see, if I could see a gun in there, if I could see shell casings in there. I went through a whole list of things that I would be checking. I'd be checking who the vehicle belonged to and all kinds of things. But they announced later in the day the police arrested him. I don't think they said. Maybe that was a deal done too. I don't know. Between the hospital and public relations. I don't know. But when he left in his car, maybe they did it for, so they could get him in a better location when they did the car. I don't know what happened, but they arrested him. He was found guilty, sentenced to life in prison with no chance for parole or whatever. And quite a few years ago, he may be deceased by now, I don't know. Of course, I think he might have been, I'm not sure can't remember any details, but I did a search, went to the state of Missouri to see who was in prison. You can pull that information up, I think, in probably every state, because it's public information. He had filed a couple lawsuits against the prison. One was for not providing him the type of food that he needed for his religion or whatever, and he lost that case. and then he filed for something else and he lost that case. So, is there a moral to this story? I don't know. I think there is, but I think it's too late for all of us. Anyway, please do a thumbs up. Please click on it that you'll get a notice, whatever. Please click on the links below that take you to Amazon if you're looking to buy something. I mean, even if it's a link for something like a microphone or something, and even though you don't want a microphone, just click on it, go there, and then when you're there, if you buy something, I get a commission. Please do that, because I would like to get some commissions, and then I could buy some stuff to play with. But you got to hurry up, because I'm 82 years of age. If you dilly-dally around, it's not going to be available to me. Thanks very much for watching.